Well, hey everybody. It's Sunday, the 14th day of December, 2025. I'm Jan Erickson, and this is As Above, So Below. I hope you had a good week. I haven't looked to see if we're going to have snow by next Sunday, which is winter solstice. That would be fun if we did. Can go out and draw a sun in the snow and just celebrate. The light returning, basically, beginning to return, as it were. Although it never seems like it, but technically it is. Anyway, let's go ahead and take our first rune from the Elder Futhark to describe as the above side or soul side of things for the week. Well, we have Ansus. Ansus is the fourth rune of the Elder Futhark. I can't talk today. Anyway, it's considered to be Odin's rune, so Odin was considered a god, even though I don't consider him a god. He was probably an advanced being that was here, but I don't consider him a god. However, it describes spirit communication. It describes eloquence, a higher form of eloquence. It's about creation or the divine message. I think I left my tea in the other room. I've got a little bit of I don't know what's going on in the air outside. Maybe there's smoke or something. I don't know, but it's affecting my throat. But it deals with higher self and divinity and a higher form of clarity. So this would be Ansus. So it kind of starts the week off with maybe trying to contain what you have to say in a way that and present it in a way that's a higher form of eloquence and clarity and spirituality versus letting the ego control everything that comes out. Let's see what we have. There's one for air, there's 2 dots for water, 1 for fire, and 2 for earth. So we're looking at Fortuna Minor. You've got Fortuna Major and Minor. Major would be the greater fortune, minor would be the lesser fortune. Whereas with Fortuna Major, you would be somebody that uses the inner voice to an inner experience to help grow your success in life. It can mean, with both Fortunas, it can mean about money. But generally speaking, with Fortuna Major, it's going to be something that's more the final outcome, so the final paycheck or the final success or something like that. But whereas Fortuna Minor, on the other hand, Fortuna Minor is more like progressive success, and where you might be given to ask for help from outside. That's Major. From outside sources. To help you along the path. So it's more about how you get there than the final outcome that Fortuna Major talks about. That would be the windfall at the end. But this is the process you take along the way. And so when you're dealing with Fortuna Minor along with Ansus, you want that process to have some dignity to it. You want to speak with eloquence and clarity. You want to respect, especially if this is a collaborative experience that you're dealing with this week, you want to respect all the players in that and communicate with them on a different level, not where you're telling them what to do or whatever, in a way that maybe suppresses their voice. You want to encourage the voices of everybody involved, if that's in fact what's happening this next week. So, let's go ahead though and take some cards and see if it can define this whole thing a little bit further. I've already done some shuffling. Gives me something to do when I reboot my computer before I get started. Otherwise, sometimes what happens if I don't, I'll have to start over again because my screen will freeze and it's like, okay, I just might as well reboot, and then that goes away. So, oh, well, that's interesting. Haven't done this in a while. I've got 3 cards from the Major Arcana. We've got High Priestess, Judgment, and Justice. So before we get started there, though, we had 4 for Ansus. We have 2 for the High Priestess. We have 20 which is also a 2 for judgment, and we have 11 for, so, well, this is going to be interesting, which is a master number for justice. We have 37, which initially 3 and 7 is 10, 1 and 0 is 1, so we're going to do new beginnings. I'm going to do the numerology 2 different ways here. I'm going to leave the, I'm going to do it without justice because this is the master number 11. I like to leave the master number separate. So let's see what we get here. So we have, and so since Ansu's is a higher consciousness rune, it's interesting because you've got 4 with that. And then we have 2, and then 20 reduces to 2, so there's 4. So we have 8 there. But think about it this way. So that would be the total, and then plus, let me go. I'll just space it, and there's 11 because I put this stuff on the screen here so I can refer to it and remember what it was we did. Anyway, but here's the other interesting pattern. So we have a 4 for numerology, which is practicality and restructuring and structure, essentially, pragmatism, grounding. It's that very earthy type of draw into this is your foundation, you know. And then you have 2 cards here that also, High Priestess and Judgment, that are also calling into the divine feminine within with High Priestess and balance, because you've got the 2 pillars there of Solomon. Anytime you see 2 of anything, no matter what it is, if you could be having like a river that runs through 2 high peaks on the sides, you know, or rock faces on the side, that would be 2, or 2 tall trees that look basically the same. But and then you have judgment where people are rising out of their coffins. Here you have the angel. Again, here you have a spiritual balance. You have I view this as the focus into form, where that vortex of soul energy that slows itself down enough to be in physical reality. And here is like the abyss where it goes below, and now you're in physical reality, and you want that balance to be the same. And all too often, of course, it's not. You know, we're probably more down here instead of having an equal balance between the 2. But again, 2 is about balance, and you have that with the High Priestess here, which you're talking about intuition there, and spirituality, and higher wisdom and change, and with judgment, you're rising up and you're awakening to a new reality, essentially. So I'm wondering, both involve transformation, but if it's a 4, then you're grounding yourself in higher awareness. Okay, you would be your structure, your foundation would be soul-based, and divine clarity and things like that. So I find the numerology, and I'll when I do the write-up on the blog over at Stepping Aside, I will, I'm going to mention the numerology, because essentially having a 4 with Ansu's, and then 4 with these 2 together, and having all of these 3 be major arcana cards, which are soul archetype cards, there's just this heavy emphasis on the progressive nature of next week, being its foundation being higher consciousness based. Okay, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And so I get a little excited when I see patterns here, in terms of the numerology, and also the structure of the reading, because in a sense, you know, you're looking at the Elder Futhark, which would be essentially very similar in vibration to the major arcana in tarot. And so you're looking at soul archetype stuff, and with both modalities, you know, both type of divination modalities. And so I think, you know, again, with the High Priestess, again, you're looking at, you know, you've got the lovely crown up here, maiden, mother, and crone. You've got the tree of life, Kabbalistic tree of life behind her on a drape. Again, she's sitting between the pillars of Solomon, one being the receptive side of self, and the other being the projective side of self. You might think of that as feminine and masculine. I say it that way sometimes, but I'm actually more comfortable with receptive and projective. She's got her foot on, there's a sense of initiation with her. You're seeing here also the same cross on her right here, and on the flag here that is attached to Gabriel's horn. When he's awakening everybody. So you're awakening using that higher consciousness between these two cards and intuition to awaken to a different kind of truth, a different kind of understanding that's higher awareness space, that's higher consciousness space next. And then with Ansu's communicating that outward in your life in some way. Again, now we come to justice. Again, same pillars. Okay, you see Lady Justice sitting on her throne. She has a red drape behind her. There's with Justice, you see also the yellow area here, which could be the creator. It could be the sun. It could represent that, or the creative influence that's higher awareness base, that's higher consciousness base. Here you have the sword going upward toward heaven. And you have the scales here in her left hand, in her receptive hand, creating that balance. Again, the balance here that needs to exist in order to essentially bring in the light of spirit and express it outward in a balanced fashion to other people, in your life, whatever is coming up here for you. If it's the idea with Fortuna Major or Fortuna Minor, I'm sorry, where it's the idea of progressive, a type of progressive type of thing, what you're looking at then, I think, is trying to maintain that level throughout what you're going to be doing next week of higher conscious-based interactions with other people. Okay, so the decisions that you have to make along the way to then proceed to the next step kind of thing, you're going to want to make sure that it's not ego-based, that it's not based on whatever, your needs or desires are, but what is good for the goal, essentially, good for the entire experience, and elevate that into a place where ego's not trying to control the situation. What I like about Fortuna Minor over Major is the idea that you're willing to ask for help with Fortuna Minor, taking those steps and consulting with other people with more experience, for example. Now, maybe that has to do with legal stuff, okay? Or it may have to do with the idea of balanced reason, or maybe some keeping an egalitarian type of an experience in your collaboration with other people, with nobody having all the answers necessarily, nobody trying to talk over other people, that you all come together in some kind of balanced fashion. So again, you've got balance throughout this entire reading, but with the 11, you're looking at the master number for awakening and illumination and enlightenment. So again, you're doing the same thing here. 11 reduces to 2. If you're going to reduce 11, which I don't, it's going to reduce to 2, right? And so I think that overall, we can look at this. If we do reduce the 11 to 2, you've got expressions of balance throughout, and we would end up then with the overall 1 numerology of new beginnings, and also success and talent and leadership. But again, it's a higher form of that, where you're not doing it for the sake of the ego. You're doing it for the sake of the greater good, if you will. So whatever this is for you next week, balance is throughout the entire picture here. Again, you've got 2, you've got 2, and you've got 2 if you reduce the 11 to 2. All right, it's lower vibration. 11 would be the higher vibration. of it. But there's balance, different kinds. You know, the inner balance you have with the high priestess, that greater awakening to the fundamental truth of all of our existence here with judgment. That's another type of balance, keeping that balance between ego and spirit that needs to be there. Ego will propel you on to do different things. It's just that with spirit, with the soul, it's the soul having those experiences. And so you can experience that lower vibrational ego stuff and learn something from it. But it shouldn't be what carries you through your life, hopefully anyway. Hopefully you realize who you actually are and as a soul, and you realize the dynamic force of that, right? And you try to live your life from that perspective, from that vibration, instead of from the reactive ego. That's kind of what this whole reading has always been about, is identifying what is actually higher vibratory belief structures and attitudes and behaviors versus the lower ego stuff that really just gets in the way of all of that, right? And it's one thing to see it for what it is and learn that, and then that gets taken back to the collective consciousness. But the idea is that we don't stay there. We learn from the experience and rise above things, and try to see things from that higher perspective, and then express ourselves in ansus with that type of eloquence and divine clarity that the ego just doesn't understand. Okay, so it's kind of interesting. We've got 2, 2, 2, if you want to look at it that way, and then 4. That's 10, and 10 and 1 and 0 is 1. So new beginnings. Again, having that higher form of leadership, working together with other people maybe this week, not being afraid to ask questions or ask for assistance, not letting your ego get in the way of that. And just see how things go in that, with that type of mindset. Just keep it in your mind and try to embody that and express that higher consciousness in everything you do this coming week. And then come next Sunday with winter solstice, you know, the light returns. And so you're moving, you're getting that in order, right? And you're moving into that wonderful experience of winter solstice. So and again, you know, this could be just behaving in a just and fair fashion, balanced fashion, or it could also mean that maybe whatever you're doing next week, you might need to seek some legal counsel. That would be the only other outlier that I would say about the reading. And again, being able to think beyond yourself here a little bit, and collaborate with other people and raise that vibration up so everybody feels like they're part of that unified experience that you will hopefully have this next week. So anyway, I think that's all I have. Gosh, that's just a really powerful type of reading here. It's just so filled with higher consciousness, and then to have Fortuna Minor, you know, it's signaling a successful outcome, but it's the way you go about it along the path to get there, the steps you take, that really matter. Okay, and need to be in balance with you and whoever else you're working with next week. So anyhow, that's it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again on Sunday, next Sunday, winter solstice, when the sun moves into Capricorn, for another edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.